This is a message to all my supporters of this podcast. I'm introducing a new supporters program. You can contribute a small amount as a one-off payment to show your love for this podcast. Thank you in advance for all your contributions. I just wanted to let you know before we start the podcast that I am doing an online podcast course, how to be able to create, get your guests, scale it and monetize it. So please do go to abmpodcastcourse.co.uk and go into the contact us bit. I'm looking for new people to be able to be a podcast creator and really to be able to develop their skills and knowledge into a podcast. So as I said, go to abmpodcastcourse.co.uk and sign up. Thanks.
Great, thank you. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you very much. Thank you very much for being a guest on my podcast.
My pleasure. Thanks for inviting me. Let's do this.
Yeah, it's been a sort of we met under a year ago, or maybe over a year ago now, at a speaking conference.
Yeah, that's right.
Doing it's one of those. You've been one of those people that I've always been on my sort of list that I wanted to invite. We met in on the conference. Your speech was amazing, so engaging.
Thank you.
And I thought you'd be a fantastic guest. So thank you for joining me.
Wow, the pressure's on. The pressure's on.
No pressure here at all, Elliot. So let's go back to your origin story. So your degree was in dance.
That's correct.
So tell me a little bit about that. How that came about? Was it a passion from childhood? Did you your upbringing, was it encouraging you to do that?
Oh no.
Okay.
Basically, my upbringing. I can't speak. My upbringing was a very kind of, I guess, like many of us, it wasn't the best in the world. I had an alcoholic father and a workaholic mother. She was trying to put food on the table. My dad was drinking his life away. And, I spent a lot of time in the streets and so, knife fights, smoking. So it wasn't like I wasn't your model youth, let's put it that way. And then when I was 16, my mum kind of moved me to a different area because she was so scared that I'd end up in jail. She moved me to a more quiet, kind of rurally type field place. And that changed everything for me. But even then, there was nothing to do with dance in my life. In fact, dance didn't really come into my life till I was 17.
Okay.
And I did a degree in Barnet College. And in my year was Paul Catamol from S Club 7, the first one to leave. Yeah. And a year above me was Emma Bunton from the Spice Girls. Right. They got all the fame. I didn't quite make it. So then when I finished uni, I was like, do you know what? What's the one thing I really feel? I really feel it. And I was like, I'm going to pursue, the original idea was to pursue musical theatre. But, one slight problem, Mark, is I'm a terrible singer. And I worked really hard at becoming good at singing, but I was just awful. And so then I did a degree, dance and drama, where you don't really do any dancing or anything at all to do with dance. You just study it. And then at the age of 21, actually, I was like, do you know what? I want to make this a career. I want to really pursue this. So I left university and auditioned for dance school. It's a real famous story. Right. And then despite all odds, despite being older than everyone else, despite being really, really bad, the principal came up to me at the end. She said, I can't put you in the year you auditioned for. You're going to have to start again. Are you okay with that? I said, yes. And she goes, you're either going to be a massive success or a terrible failure. We'll write to you. And she walked away. I was like, okay. And, I really, in the sense of, I really wanted it, throughout university, I was highly inspired by another dancer called Rudolf Nureyev. And, I wanted to be the next Nureyev, even though I had no chance. I couldn't move I couldn't dance like it. But, he inspired me, right? And so, and it's a typical, I worked every night and every weekend to fund myself. And they were so impressed with my attitude, they actually got a scholarship for 2 years. And then my third year was funded, and that's how I started my dance career. And it lasted, so by now I'm 25, by the way, to give you an idea of the age. So it started quite late, 25, and then for 5 years I was a dancer. toured. I worked in the Middle East. I worked in Spain. I worked a little bit in Germany. I did an Irish show, like river dance. Yeah, but I didn't do the Irish dancing. I just did the kick the leg up. Woo, everybody claps because you can get a leg in the air, that kind of thing. I do box splits. I was like, wow. Did that for a while. Came back to the UK. And then I toured the UK for a while. And that's when I had a back injury. And that's when things kind of changed for me. Does that answer your question?
Well, it gives me lots of different areas to go into. So let's just go back to that choice. So obviously your upbringing wasn't the easiest, but what was the point that made you then transition to I love dance, I want to pursue it or do a degree and pursue it? What was that? Where was the inspiration point there?
Well, it kind of, when I was 16, I did Shakespeare at school, right? One of those cheesy, terrible Shakespeare plays. And then I did Grease, which was also terribly cheesy and awful, but and there's another story there with my midsection falling out in front of the whole school, but that's another podcast, another time, but very funny. And I think it was that kind of like where I found a safe place to express myself. I think that's really what inspired me. And then when I went to Barnet College, it was about musical theatre because I could do all three. I could sing, I could dance, I could act, thinking that would be the great combination. The truth is, the reason I ended up in university is because we couldn't afford to go to musical school, right? And the ones I auditioned to, I was never really good for scholarship. A couple of places accepted me. They tentatively accepted me, but I was on the waiting list in case someone that was better than me didn't take the place, kind of thing. So university was free at the time. Well, not free, but you know what I mean? It was before you were charged to go. In fact, I'm the last year of that.
Lucky you.
And actually what drew me there was the fact that I could do dance and drama, not pay. And that's where I discovered Nureyev. And so he really inspired me to take my dance to another level, to take it seriously, to put the time in. But of course, when you're at university and you have such limited resources at university, then you crave something else. And I knew I would never achieve it while being on the course I was on.
And I find it fascinating that you had a passion and you did it every day, weekend, all the time. Is that part of your personality, a sort of obsessiveness about things?
That's a good question. Shall I get my wife in? I'm sure she'll give the answer to this. But no, I guess there is. I think there is an slight obsession to where, wherever I do 100%. I really don't know any lower percent. And if I am doing anything lower percent, then I don't really want to do it. So I think there is, but I just really wanted it, Mark. I was defiant. I really wanted to prove everyone wrong. I was told I'll never get noticed. I mean, recently there was an article in Expert Profile magazine, and I even thank the teacher, kind of Robbie Williams style when he calls out the teacher, except I'm not accepting an MTV award, right? But really, I just remember her name was Rachel Richardson, and she said, you won't get noticed. No one will spot you. You're not going to be taken seriously. You're too old. Your body's too set. So, are you sure you want to do this? And I was like, yes. My mom and my parents were like, look, finish first, get your degree, then do it. I was like, no, now's the time to do it. They were like, well, you're on your own. We can't pay for you because I didn't have, I don't come from an affluent family. Money was always scarce, due to actually by then my father was in recovery, but he was still very poor and my mom was still very workaholic, but didn't have a lot of money, if you know what I mean. So I was just very adamant. And I think when I get my bit between the teeth, it's very hard to move me. I'm very focused. And, I wouldn't say like I'm a freight train, but I'm very, very, the momentum is forwards and it's very hard to derail me.
And it's very interesting that you said you did touring as well. So as someone in their 20s, how was that touring all over the world? What was that like as a dancer? What's that like touring?
We'll be back after a quick break. Hi, I'm Alex, the host of X Health Show. Meet the future of healthcare. Think X-Men, that's X Health. Actual superheroes behind programming living cells to cure cancer once and for all. Tech that detects preterm delivery in seconds, brain-computer interface, or apps that employ AI to match you, your disease, with the best treatment. X Health Show brings to you visionaries who push the boundaries of healthcare from Switzerland, the heart of Europe and the most innovative country in the world. Let me introduce you to their startups. Head to X Health Show, meet the future of healthcare. Happy to greet you there.
It's looking back nostalgically, it was amazing, right? I think I was very lucky. I wish I had a better money mindset at the time, and I saved more money, and I took, different opportunities, because at the time I just wanted to be an artist. I just wanted to express myself. So I'm going to take this project, even though it doesn't pay a lot, versus this other project that could have set me up. When I took the job with the Irish show, I was offered a job on a cruise ship, which would have been, zero accommodation, food supplied, drink supplied, or $1. And I could have spent a year on there and saved up so much money. It wasn't great pay, but, the payback was great. And I turned it down because I really wanted to tour with an Irish show where the money actually was better, but in the grand scheme of things, I spent far more money than I made. So it really didn't work very well.
Especially if you were with the Irish who like a drink or two.
Exactly. I mean, that was every night. And, and the Germans, right? Because those Germans, we were touring Germany. So could you get a more drinky culture? And I tried to keep up, I'll never forget the time I ended up at this festival and this German guy goes, English, come here. This big German guy. I was like, yeah. He goes, you drink. And I was like, it's probably like Indiana Jones when they drink, they go toe to toe, except I had zero chance. I mean, he was necking them back so quickly. And I was like, no way. Anyway, we digress. So touring was great. But for me, it was just part of the lifestyle. It wasn't, I didn't think at the time like, wow, I'm touring. This is amazing. I was like, this is just what we do. And you just kind of assimilate into that way of being and that lifestyle. And okay, where's the next tour? Like, where's the next job? And you're just hopping and looking for the next opportunity. And it's quite unfortunate that when I got injured, I had actually got to that place where a lot of dancers aspire to get, which is where you get the phone call inviting you to audition. For a long time, you're fighting to audition. And then I really got to that place where I was getting calls from the opera house and they're like, Elliot, we want you to come in and audition for this part as a dancer, not a singer, obviously. I was going to, again, getting invited to auditions. And normally when you're invited to auditions, you pretty much got the job. They're just going through the formality. But my too bad. I'll never forget. I was having a conversation with this woman called Fleur, and she'd invited me to audition. And halfway through the audition, obviously, I couldn't go anymore. And then she just sat me down and said, look, Elliot, you had this job in the bag, but I cannot risk what just happened here. Yeah. And, it's quite a kick in the stomach especially when you've changed direction and you've invested, so much of your life into it. And that's when I knew I had to take time out from dancing and I had to rehabilitate. And a bit like Rocky, for a year, I just really focused on, strength and toning and things like that. But what I didn't do properly is actually fix the injury. The pain went away, but I didn't realize that it was to do with structure, like my alignment. So then a year later, after 3 months, I'd given up coffee, I'd given up alcohol, I'd been doing push-ups and sit-ups every day. I was buff, toned, ready to go. Last kick of the class I went into, boom, my back went again. And that's when I knew, like, things will never be the same. My life is changing, but not in a good way.
So just talk me through that realization that something you'd spent 10 plus years getting ready for and getting success. And as you say, you started getting invited to auditions. How was that shift to know that you couldn't do it anymore professionally anyway?
Yeah, it was tough. It's interesting because that's all I wanted at the time, right? So it's a bit like your dream being ripped away. And actually, for me, I went to a dark space. I almost went a bit numb, if you know what I mean. I just really, at the time I was working in this call center and I was living in Highbury. So that was great because I had an amazing social life. I had some great friends. But I do remember, because I remember in my friend's house, like how I'd wake up every day and I'd be hollow and I'd be quite empty and quite depressed. Like my thoughts were quite sinister, I wasn't suicidal, but I literally felt like my world had crumbled. So I'd get up and I'd be on autopilot and I'd go and it was a call center job, fundraising. And the good thing about it is you could choose your shifts. It was one of those kind of like, it was designed around people who performed. So that was good. And then I would always have a drink, to numb the pain, and then go home with some beautiful woman or not beautiful woman, depending how much I had to drink. But that was my coping mechanism. No disrespect to the women, right? But yeah, that was the way I did it. And, I'm still friends with some of those guys then. And I just was like, I just kind of felt this gap in my life, and no drink and no woman, right? And would fill that. But that's what I had to go through at the time. I mean, I didn't develop a habit. I didn't go like, no, we've all done that. We go for a rough period, we drink a bit more, but it wasn't like I was waking up downing a bottle of vodka. Yeah. And then from there, I kind of found my way into hospitality for a bit.
Yeah.
And, I did that for a while up in Watford, and then at a 5-star hotel, and I met some quite interesting celebrities and footballers. But of course, I was nothing but a barman to them. So that wasn't very useful, was it? But, at the time, I was trying to actually get a TV show commission called Bending Balls. So all my effort and all my time went into that. But that didn't succeed.
What was Bending Balls?
So Bending Balls was, the concept was, the whole TV show was dedicated to showcase musicians of football fans and football fans as musicians. And I had this whole structure, and you would literally go, what are the habits of the football team you support as a musician? You'd learn their songs, you'd learn the chant, but we'd go to smaller clubs as well. And then as a football fan, they would go through like their CD collection and talk about what it was. I mean, there's more to it, but this is kind of so there's a real kind of like crossing over and bridging, and a real opportunity for different, for artists to showcase a different side for them, and for footballers, and it got very close to being commissioned actually. I think it was one of the World Cups, and BBC showed a real interest, but it was too short period. It'd been too expensive production wise. Again, so I did that. So I plowed a lot of my money and savings into that. And then I just after a while hated hospitality so much I vowed never to go back. And I haven't ever since, to be honest.
Good.
Saying that, we might be buying a restaurant soon. So that's something else that's come up. And then from there, I found myself again back in a call center with the ambition, because do you remember Bid Up TV, Price Drop TV? Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I went into their call center with the ambition to get onto the TV and be one of the guys who goes, hey, look at this glass. Isn't it great? Look at this glass. You want this glass? Here's the glass, right? And actually I did, again, like you said, I got my bit between the teeth, and I put together a show reel, and I found out who I need to send it to. His name was Ashley, and I made sure that I communicated with him. It was a bit cheeky because call center staff were not allowed to mix with the TV's people. It was very segregated. Yeah. But I didn't care, and I sent him a message and said, sure. And then he watched it, said, gave me some feedback. Not yet, work on your craft. You need to learn to sell, not just present. It's very different, bid TV, the Price Drop TV than presenting. And then after that, I moved to another contact center where I ended up working with some huge brands, Sky, TalkTalk, KFC, Pizza Hut, Waterstones, really designing the customer service training and designing the customer service experience. So years ago, if you tried to leave TalkTalk and you didn't, I trained those people. And I actually took them from 30% retention to 70% retention. And that kind of made me in that space. I became written into proposals. I became the guy that designs training in line with the company brands, company values and the brand values. And that served me really well, for a while. And that takes me, when does that take us to? I can't remember the age I'm on about. That takes us to around 2008, 2009.
Okay. We're going where we're at 2010, so that's great. Thank you for that. But so you said that sales, you got into, like they said, the bid TV, you need to develop your skill set in sales. And I would say, watching you as a speaker, you're very good at being able to inspire and sell and bring value as well. was that your first exposure to sort of selling and sort of needing to show that side of you?
If only, Mark, if only. If that was the case, we were having this conversation on my mansion in Malibu or something. No, definitely wasn't. You know, when I first stepped into this space, which is around the time we're going into 2010, and the reason I ended up doing coaching is because I wanted to be a better trainer. And I really looked at CIPD, and the whole courses looked so boring. I was like, you know what else could I do? I looked at coaching, I bought the course. Again, I had to have guinea pigs to get qualified. You know, it's not today when you do a weekend, like, congratulations, you're a coach. Right, I had to work with 15 people. I had to really kind of submit all these projects. So it's very good in that respect. And I remember the first kind of talk stroke evening we did. It was a pub around the corner in Chiswick. Now I'm in West London, boy. You know, moving all around London, me.
Where are you in West London?
Acton.
You're Acton, so I'm Chiswick. I'm Strand.
There you go. So yeah, the care line was based where I was based in Chiswick, right next to Honda.
Yeah.
We used to go to Honda for coffees. Yeah. There you go. It's a small world. I lived in Chiswick Village for a while as well. Love Chiswick Village.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
I used to love coming home from sit up, and I used to go sit by the river late at night. You know, loved that. So that's that. Now you really know my zone. You know, it's going Ealing. So you know all these places. We won't mention LA's or anything like that. You know, surely you don't know what I'm talking about, because you wouldn't know what I'm referring to.
I've only been here 6 years, so
I think you're probably in the crossover of what LA's used to be. But we'll talk about that, right? Redback? No, Redback would have gone.
Oh yeah, no, I remember the Redback actually. Yes, I do remember that. Yeah,
so I used to go Redback on weekends. Yeah, there we go. Here's my life. I'm sure that your listeners didn't really kind of need to know that. So yeah, it was in a pub around the corner from Honda in Chiswick. I can't remember what it's called. It's opposite the station, and opposite the Gunnersbury station. Yeah, it's right opposite. What's it called?
Gunnersbury now. It's the Gunnersbury now.
Oh, is that what it's called? There we go. It might have been called Gunnersbury back then. And the guy was really nice. The guy there said, look, my back room, it's cool. I just want to support you, because we drank there a lot. And, it was called Doing What You Love, Love What You Do. And I did it with this woman called Amanda. And we had 8 people there. And, when you start out in this space, you kind of think that by adding value and just by doing a great job, people will buy. And you and I know that is not the case. So it took me a while to really grasp that. You do great thing and you help them there and then. Of course, at the time I was coaching, so these people having these breakthroughs, and the people weren't buying. They just weren't buying. They were like, great, thanks. And they'd go. It's like, well, buy from me. Like, no. So you kind of learn over time how to integrate. We believe strongly in sales through adding value. So you kind of earn the right to sell. There are people out there that sell. That's not our style. And it's taken time. When I used to run my other seminars, It's Your Right to Be Wrong, Power to Succeed, it took me a long time to really finesse it and to be authentic with it. And, it's very easy to learn someone else's cookie cutter style and then deliver it. And again, when I've tried that, it was clunky. So I think what you saw at the turn of the year is kind of accumulations of years of work and hard work and at time bombing and completely getting it wrong and then rebuilding. And also you got to remember what you saw the turn of the year. I've been doing this a decade now, and I used to do really big rooms, 200, and then I've, pretty much on a monthly basis been doing, 10 to 12 people type trainings as well, plus my members. So you giving me that feedback is a great compliment, because that means something's landing, something's working. Obviously, I got a few signups on the day as well. So yeah, that's kind of how I arrived there.
Well, let's just take a step out of your journey. One of the questions I'm now asking people is, do you have a morning routine?
I do. I've got a series of kind of incantations, affirmations, detachments that I go through to kind of get me there. And I've been doing them for years. I mean, what I haven't told you in the meantime is in 2010, no, it's 2011 actually, I declared bankruptcy because of a property I invested in Cardiff.
Oh,
Personal bankruptcy, obviously. So that affected my ability and my business and things like that at the time. And it was since then, pretty much I've been doing it. So last 9 years, I've been doing these affirmations, incantation. It starts with, I command my subconscious and doing all that stuff. And then I do detachment, which is the whole, I destroy and uncreate it all, pod pog, short spoils me on, which is called access consciousness. And then I'll ask questions like, what will it take to have a great day? What will it take to attract more clients? And you kind of let go and you send it to the universe kind of thing. And I guess that's the airiest part of me. And then in the evening, what I have integrated for the last month, because I was going for a really rough head time, is I've reconnected with meditation again. Because back in 2016, I actually trained in the Shaolin in China with some monks.
okay.
And that's where I kind of really witnessed like the power of meditation. Again, I'm not a bit, I can't do hours and hours, but I can do 7-8 minutes. And lately in the last month, again, I have my own coach and we discuss kind of coping strategies. And I just felt myself drawn back to this particular chant that I used to listen to when I came back from Shaolin. So I've reconnected with that. So now before I go to bed, 7-8 minutes, I just kind of allow myself to listen to it and connect to source, as in the higher powers, not as in source, the alcohol, very different things, very different outcomes. And I guess that's my routine now.
That's fascinating. I don't want to dwell on it because obviously you've moved a long way forward, but declaring bankruptcy was, again, that was obviously a troubling time and having to go through that. Did you find that after that, because people I've spoken to who have declared bankruptcy have then said they then go on a personal finance education, and whether it's people, courses, whatever it is, a lot of people have said that's sort of like a turning point for them. Was that the same for you?
Yeah, I think going bankrupt is a financial education, right? I'll never forget the day. I wasn't long with Emily, who's now my wife, and I don't know if hopefully you've never been through it and you don't have to go through it, but you have to justify each debt that you ended up in. So you literally fill in this form and it goes to court. You put the amount, how did you end up in this debt, and had to write you justifying why. Yeah. I guess they're looking that you weren't it wasn't negligence, you weren't just wasting it, And I remember at the end, I finished that and I just found myself slamming my fist against the fridge in rage. I was just so angry. I mean, I haven't had rage like that for years, like not since I was a teenager. And I ended up going for a walk. And I walked for like 2 hours, along Greenwich, and then by then we were living in Greenwich. See, again, a real kind of tour of my life.
Yeah.
And I just walked along the river for miles and I came back and I was calm again. And I was just like, since then, I've been quite shrewd with numbers. I've been quite, because part of what you do when you go bankrupt is you tell them how much you need to live off.
Mm.
And I think it took me 3 years to stop living off that and paying myself more.
Mm.
I became incredibly shrewd. So, of course, there's room for me to improve. There's more for me to be better, especially in this period. But it definitely taught me to look at numbers, and it taught me to really calculate taking risks. Even though I'm still a risk taker, it definitely gave me that kind of like red light. Ooh, be careful, because I bought the property in 2006, right? No, 2005, and it's meant to be released in 2007, and it was in Wales, it's city centre. I bought it for £112,000. By stage 3, it's worth almost 140. So on completion, it was meant to be 160, but of course, it was delayed for a year. Then 2008 kicked in.
Yeah.
The rest is history.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about your training and your coaching. So I was reading through one of your earlier roles with the Coach with the Hat Training and Coaching Limited, and they were talking about empowering coaching system. So was that a training program that you were involved in?
So everything I designed, so I used to be the Coach with the Hat. They used to be the brand. So when we launched in 2010, I launched under the Coach with the Hat, and that became kind of my my identifier. In fact, so much so, last year when we were in Center Parks buying a coffee in Starbucks, some guy looked at me and went, "Aren't you the coach of the hat?" It's like, I was, but I'm not anymore. So that still, people still remember me as the coach of the hat. It's quite interesting. And part of the reason we stopped being the coach of the hat is so we could attract more corporate, more serious business people. So yeah, the empowering coaching system was the sixth step that I kind of came up with when I taught coaching, and I just gave it a framework, which is the empowering coaching system. When I wrote my first book, It's Your Right to Be Wrong, is all based around the empowering coaching system. And you know, all I really did was took what coaching was and gave it a different name. You know, and I'd have like, you know, there's 6 typical sessions, nothing that's new that anyone's in the coaching world. I just packaged it differently, and then it became memorable. Empowering coaching system. God, no one's asked me about that for years, Mark. So well done on your research, I've got to say. Very impressed.
Following up on that, you then moved to, which I'm assuming is a little bit more business focused, the Strategic Brilliance Service Limited. So you're mentoring and growing businesses to 100K and beyond. So was that the turn to something a little bit more corporate?
Yes, the name was. I still ended up, the part of we call it Strategic Brilliance Services is so we could appeal to more corporates. But I ended up working more with coaches, trainers, consultants, and speakers on their strategy. And I became qualified in something called Strategy on the Page. And I used to use that framework to work with them on that. So I didn't pivot. Basically, what happened was we had one of our Power to Succeeds, and the conversions weren't great. And I just kind of, again, did the maths. I was like, well, if we have another Power to Succeed like that, it could take us out. And this is 2015. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to finish off the membership I have with the guys now. So I still had members, but I'm going to focus on moving more into strategy. And that's how Strategic Brilliance Services was born. And then we really pushed Elliot Kay as the brand, you know, and it was about me being the front of the company. And actually, Strategic Brilliance Services existed up until this year, until we launched Speaker Express UK Limited.
Yeah. And was so go pitching to more corporate side or to the larger businesses. You said it wasn't really a pivot, so you were implementing a lot of what you had and just sort of now pitching it to the larger organisation rather than the entrepreneurs. Was that right?
Yeah, but the pitching it to large organizations didn't really take off, to be completely honest. What it did take off is pitching it to coaches, trainers, consultants, and speakers. And again, because I spoke the language, I spoke the right terminology, and so we used to run things called, Strategy 360, Strategy Intensive. Then I'd have like a training called the Reboot program, and that really kept me going up until a couple of years ago. I did that. I guess was it a pivot? I don't know, because a pivot is coming round on yourself, isn't it? You got one foot in one place and you spin round. Yeah. It was a change of direction. It was going, instead of coaching people to have the confidence to launch businesses, I gave them a strategy to do it. But what I found in essence is you're doing the same stuff. Even if you're using strategy, you're still working on people's confidence. You're still working on people's ability to take action. And even if you go, I need a strategist, well, you're spending half the time working on their ability to take action in the first place. Yeah. And I did that for a while. And again, I kind of, I changed tact a couple of years ago. Because at one point I used to charge $4,000 and I had 30 clients, and I just had no time. I mean, the money was good, but I was going back to back to back to back. And so then I changed tact and I did the whole only take 5 clients at a certain amount a year, and everything focused in on the reboot, and that worked really well. And I still had a few one-to-one clients that paid me fairly decent. But then what happened is I ended up with really bad depression. So when I was 42, it was my birthday, and I woke up with that empty, hollow feeling. Yeah. Except this time I was married to a beautiful woman. I had a beautiful daughter. And I just remember waking up and I just felt like I wasn't good enough anymore, that I wasn't making the money I should be making. I didn't have the house that I should have. And this real comparison program kicked in. It came out of nowhere. Like nothing happened. Excuse me. Maybe it's something that happens when you hit a certain age, right? Mm. And I thought, again, having this former coach and being NLP and EFT and all these things, I spent 2 weeks really working on it, and I thought I'd gone away, and then I just came back, and I went to some really dark places, and it was really hard. I mean, it was fairly suicidal at one point, but no one knew, right? No, I didn't tell anybody. I didn't let anyone down. I kept the business going. I kept the business going well. And the reason I tell you that is because when I came out of that is when I was like, you know what? Strategy is not in line with who I am. Right. When I and Speaker Express, who I've been involved in since day one, since 2011 when it was formed, I was like, I really feel that's in alignment with who I am. Even the spiritual teacher that helped me through the depression, she's like, that is you. So then I decided to wind Strategic Billing Services down, the reboot and all that, and shift full time into Speaker Express, which is what I do now.
Look, I don't want to go into sort of too much into mental health, but I think it's really important.
If you want.
There's a lot of business people, entrepreneurs that go through these sort of dark times, and as you said, there wasn't necessarily a trigger. It just came over you one day. You said we worked with a spiritual leader. Do you mind just talking me through who that was and how they helped you?
Yeah, by all means. I mean, it's amazing because I can't tell you what she did, right? If you ask me what did she do, I can't say, well, we did goal setting in this, or we did. It's very interesting because I remember the day I approached her. I was on the train to Waterloo and I found myself listening to prayer music. Any prayer, gospel, Jewish, like you name it. I was just searching. I was going, God, prayer, I was just really... my soul was yearning. It was shouting out at me. It was going, we need to sort this out. And I sat the whole journey, and I actually looked at it the other day, this really long message, where I was, what's going on in my mind and everything. I still a bit, again, hadn't told you this. We launched in LA previously. We piloted in LA and that went okay, but didn't yield the returns. It took a while to break cost. The budget quadrupled. So lots of stuff, and I thought I'd over that, and I wasn't over that. So lots of stuff going on in my head. My wife didn't know, like no one knew that I had this because I couldn't articulate it. I didn't know how to say it. But when I sat down, her name was Ila Kangram. And I just sent her a message, and then she's like, oh, hello, I've been waiting for you. I'm like, well, if you know this is going on for me, why, typical spiritual response, like, yes, I knew you'd be in touch. It's like, well, if you knew, why didn't you reach out? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, stop being so spiritual. Just say, oh, hello, thanks for reaching out. I've been waiting for you. It's like, come on, this isn't like a Yoda film, like, So anyway, she's like, okay, let's do this. I was like, okay. And she said, Elliot, I know you think what I do is airy-fairy and fluffy. I said, you know what, Ila, I trust you. That's all. Whatever you ask me to do, I'll do. And I just want to get through this. I want to survive and I want to live, right? I don't want to go down these dark roads. So, we did, I can't tell you, Mark, we did how, we would do calligraphy. A lot of it's based around forgiveness. We would, ask for forgiveness. We would, bring up certain people, ask them for forgiveness and generations before them. And a lot of it was kind of like, I guess, karmic work. And still now, when I meditate at night, I connect with Source and I ask for forgiveness. And every time I feel someone pops into my head, I'll ask them to for forgiveness. And that took a while to come out. And after a few months, it was the summer, and I remember I was at a training program for entrepreneurs. I was doing my business partner at the time. And I remember approaching the main man. I was like, I don't think strategy is for me. He goes, I agree. He goes, I think you should do speaking. You should focus on Speaker Express. And when I ran that by Ila, she's like, absolutely. Strategy was never you. You're out of alignment. She talks in, you're not in alignment with heaven. She's like, that's a conversation. Heavens is saying no. Yesterday, she's very like that. And she's amazing. I mean, she's also a family friend. She still charged me loads of money, though, by the way. Family friend or schmamly friend. But, we were invoicing you. It's worth every penny, right? And, I really it's thanks to her that I came out of it and I was able to tell Emily. My business partner was shocked. She's like, how did I not pick this up? How did I not know? And I was like, well, because I really didn't tell anybody. And And I think that's A, because I couldn't articulate it, but B, I didn't want the whole, ooh, and people feeling that uncomfortable, not knowing what to do. And again, I didn't know what it was till I came out of it.
I think it's something I've never really shared on my podcast before, but I feel compelled to tell you. So I've had a therapist for a number of years, and I've suffered, which I have talked about, I've suffered with bereavement, multiple bereavements, and finding that safe zone to be able to talk about things that are difficult to talk to friends and family about has been incredibly valuable to me. And I think I possibly would have hit something towards depression if I hadn't have had that support around me. So I get it. I get what you're going through. It's interesting for me that the solution is probably the same. It's packaged in a slightly different way. So for me, something more medical was more important to me at the time. Sounds like for you, it was a little bit more spiritual that brought you out of it. It's interesting that they're basically telling the same story, just in a different way.
Yeah. I think for me, it was about the person. I mean, had she said, Elliot, I think you should go on antidepressants, I'd probably gone, okay, right. I think it was, like you said, it's having that safe space and the person I could trust.
Yeah.
That was what was really important to me. Because also, having been the coach with a hand, having been, Elliot Kay a couple of years ago, I wouldn't say I was a massive name, but I was fairly known, like in a certain small circle. And I felt my options of who I could open up to were very limited, and where I could go to discuss this stuff. Yeah. And Illa was the perfect fit.
Fantastic. That's amazing. It's a great story to tell. So
Thanks for sharing you as well.
Oh, that was absolutely fun. Speaker Express. Let's talk about this. So it's a training company. You build with entrepreneurs, helping entrepreneurs through public speaking. So this was what was interesting when we first met, and you did your speech, your talk it was around speaking and how you can build business through speaking. So tell me a little bit about the business.
Yeah, so look, often you get very few opportunities to pitch, and what's important is when you do get the opportunity to pitch, you maximize. Now, I don't mean pitch necessarily sell, but when you're on stage, it's stage time, and there's key ingredients that must be at play. You must use the right language, the language that lands. You've got to have a structure that leads people to buy. And what's the third component? Slipped my mind. 3 things: language, structure. Oh, impactful presenting, right? How could I forget that? Yeah. And I think what's really important, because what we specialize in is really using you, the entrepreneur, the business owner, using speaking to grow your business. We're not necessarily about you becoming an amazing keynote speaker. That's a side effect. And unless you have those ingredients at play, your impactful, great language, and of course, great structures, then you're going to miss the mark. Something won't click, something won't work. And you've seen this. Too many people, they get on stage and they talk about themselves. It's boring, it's self-indulgent, even if they mean well. So there's a disconnect. Even if you're a very impactful person, if you're just like going everywhere with your talk, again, you're never going to sell, you're never going to enroll people. So what we really specialize in is using what we call the speaker's method to really enroll people to want to work with you, to buy from you. And that works across the board. During lockdown, in the last few months, I've worked with investors, and I've worked with marketing agencies, and I've worked with diversity trainers, and I've worked with, people starting online platforms. It really doesn't, for us, it's not important that I know your industry. What's important is you adapt what we teach you to the structures, the language, and be impactful. Yeah. And often it's actually a few tweaks. A lot of people think it's this big thing, and often it's not. It's a little tweak, and that's what we specialize in.
And who's your co-founder?
Her name's Anik Patru. She's now in Australia. She actually stepped back from running a business beginning of the year. She went to Australia with her husband. Her husband's family have some health challenges. And since she's been there, I mean, the original plan was to launch Australia, but she just didn't want to throw herself into that. And now she works with the Speaker Bureau as a speaker booker. So, yeah, her name's Anik. She's great. It was her real kind of like, she started Speaker Express way back in 2011. It became a proper company in 2013, versus just messing around. And, she's obviously a big driving force of this. And I was always involved, but she was always the front of the brand. So we've had a bit of a transitional phase, actually, even the last 12 months, because it's moved from Anik, feminine, pretty, to me, not feminine, not very pretty. So it's an interesting thing when someone takes over a brand. Even though people knew of me, I was never the front of the brand. So it's very interesting for us.
We're going to talk about your books in a minute. I want to hear about the different writing routines you have for writing three or four books. You said 4 books.
4 books. Yeah.
But I just want to explore just the branding, the personal branding, because a lot of people that been inspired by people like Gary Vaynerchuk, and people like that who are produce content. You're the personal brand. Even if you've got a business, your personal brand is hugely important. But it sounds like you actually went through that whole cycle of being at the front, being the personal brand. Was that difficult? Were there difficulties to go with, obviously, the sort of thing that people imagine is that they want to be the person at the front? Were there challenges with that as well?
Yeah, I mean, a part of me, interestingly enough, I've not been fussed about being the personal brand, because you think about it, we launched the Coach with a Hat. It wasn't Elliot Kay. Obviously, I was the coach with a hat, but the intention was always to have other coaches with hats. Then we launched Power to Succeed, and the intention was always to develop other people to deliver Power to Succeed.
Right.
And with Strategic Brilliant Services, again, is my mentor at the time going, no, you need to be the brand, So Elliot Kay led the way. But, again, I'm really not fussed about being in the front, which is a strange thing to say about the speaker. So when Anik was the front of Speaker Express, it was okay, because it meant I could be the behind the scenes, I could be the trainer, I could be the mentor, but I didn't need to be front facing. And I think the challenge is, if you are a Gary Vee and you are a Tony Robbins and you are an Oprah, this is what Tony's kind of struggled with for years, is he can't retire. He can't pass on the brand. I mean, he's done okay for being Tony Robbins. And obviously now with the whole, what he's building with his, virtual platform, and he's using AI to kind of reconstruct his teachings. I don't know if you knew that, because his voice is so gone. It's very hard to step away. Like Gary Vee cannot walk away from Gary Vee, even though there's Vader made whatever Vee blah 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 media. It's still him, right? Yeah. So there are challenges. Of course, there's great advantages. It's all about you rule. But I think in terms of scalability, in terms of you being able to step, adapt, grow, change, it's very hard once you're a personal brand. So I'm very happy to be one part, and well, now I am, I guess, the main brand of Speaker Express, but I still sit in the Speaker Express. Saying that, we are relaunching Elliot Kay, the speaker, very soon.
Okay, interesting. I think so. One of my friends did a Tony Robbins Unleash the Power relatively recently, and what he wasn't disappointed about was that Tony only now does selected parts of that course. So he is now having to hand over. I didn't realize it was because of his voice, but he is now handing that over. So the whole point of scalability is now probably better for his business than it was previously. Anyway, we sidetrack. I want to talk about your books. So do you want to talk me through them? And
sure.
I know you've just released one recently, which is what you got behind you, Speaker Masterclass.
Well, actually,
Speaker Influence Sale, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Speaker Masterclass is actually, the reason this is up is because we've just moved and there's boxes all around me.
Okay.
So that's really why that is there. But no.
Tell me about Speaker Influence Sale.
So shall we start with that one? Is that where you want to?
Yeah, start with this one, the one you're doing at the moment first.
So Speaker Influence Sale is really taking the whole Speaker Express stroke philosophy of how to speaking to grow your business. And we go through all the different aspects. We go through all the speaker's method, confidence, how you communicate your brand message, what does a signature talk mean, how do you get more bookings, how do you pitch and sell, and of course, how do you raise your profile. So that's the essence of the book, right? Of my best-selling book, I should say. Excellent. And within there's integrated stories, success stories. There's a little bit about my dance career as well. And actually that's really taken off. I'm actually very flattered and very humbled. There's for the first time on Audible as well.
Nice.
It's really interesting when I get emails from Amazon going, your payments. I'm like, oh my God, I'm getting paid. I mean, it's not a lot, but it's just like, thank you, thank you, thank you. You know, like I'm a paid author. This is so new to me. I've written 3 other books and I'm not a paid author with them. Some of them are sitting on the floor right here, but there you go. So that's really nice. But I think what I really want, and it was a long process to get this book out. This book has meant so much to me because I wrote it a couple of years ago, handed it over to my co-founder. She really didn't like it. She really didn't do anything. Then I took it back again, had to rewrite it, give it a unified voice, give it a voice that's easy to read. You know, there's so much that went into it that when it went out and it went to number 1, it was just like, whew, you know, it's like actually a really stressful day that day. And because I had so much of my heart in that book. My third book, by the way. So Speaking Fluent to Sell is really about winning the hearts and minds of your ideal clients. That's what it's about. How do you do that when you're using speaking to grow your business? It has been adopted to be pandemic, pro-pandemic, post-pandemic.
Not pro-pandemic. That's something totally different.
Yeah, no. It's definitely not pro-pandemic. Definitely not pro-pandemic. And, I think in hindsight, if I was to kind of rewrite bits of it now, I'd do a hell of a lot more about virtual speaking. Virtual delivery, virtual impact, virtual selling. I guess that's a new book. But my content girl has forbidden me from writing any more books for a long time. So for now, I'm going to listen to her because I just don't know if I have the capacity to write another book or go put anyone through that. So that's Speaking Fluent Sell. I love that's my pride and joy now.
So just tell me about your writing routine, the process. How do you? Lots of people say, I've never written a book. I'm fearful of writing a book because sitting here chatting to you on a podcast is easy, but actually putting it down on paper is a lot more difficult. So what's your routine? What's your process? Do you do it in the morning? Do you do it in the evening? What's right for you?
Interesting. Well, first of all, Mark, you have no excuses. I'm dyslexic and I've written 4 books. Okay. And if you're good at speaking, speak the book, get it transcribed, and then get it laid out. So you heard it here on the podcast. No excuses for Mark.
I'd tell you the other thing that not shamed me, but made me think about this. I did a podcast course, and there was 3 people on the course, and 2 of them had written their books. One was a more autobiographical, one was a more like sort of finance. And the guy said to me, what word does author come from? It comes from authority. So you want to be an authority on whatever the subject is, even if it's yourself on an autobiographical. But so he gave me a bit of a roast in that I need to write this book. And now I've left my corporate career. Maybe I've got a little bit more time to do that. But sorry, I just...
That's okay. So listen, I expect a book out in the next 12 months, Mark. You heard it here on your podcast first, right? Anybody that wants Mark to write a book, please comment below. And then let's see how many people comment about you writing a book. So there you go. I called you out. Yeah. This is now. If you get 100 comments, would you write the book?
Yes, I would.
Okay. Are you likely to get
probably maybe 12 months because I'd probably write 1 chapter a month and probably have like 10, 12 chapters. So I reckon it's a full year's worth of work.
Cool. Well, I'm going to give you how I write because being dyslexic, I had to come up with a system. So what I do is I will write, let's say, the chapter heading. Doesn't matter if it's exact or not. So let's say confidence. And then I'll talk about 5 key things that I want to achieve talking about confidence, right? So I just put bullet points. Yeah. And then I would start a stopwatch. For 20 minutes, I would just write 3 sentences under each bullet point, and then come back and write another 3, another 3, another 3. And then you come out 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, right? So you're going down, right? 3, 3, 3, 3. What you find within 20 minutes, and if you did that for 30 days, you have a chapter.
Right.
If not, a lot of your book done. But the important thing is you don't write editorially. You don't edit. You just write. You don't think grammar. You don't think spelling. You just write for 20 minutes. 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. Only after 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Are you allowed to go back and reread it and start to tweak it? And then again, start of the hour, 20 minutes. Then after a while, what happens is you just the synapses in your brain change and you're able to kind of get into flow. So I would listen to some serious heavy metal. My wife couldn't believe what I write to. And I would write on trains, and I would, because once you've got the skeleton, that's when you start to go back and you adapt, you go through the chapters you add, and then, you add the story, and then you add the case study, and then you kind of get a flow, and you've got to think in colors and pictures. So it's like, if you think of a picture, you got to think 3D. Okay, what does it sound like? What did it taste like? What did it feel like? Obviously, it depends what you're writing about when you talk about taste like, right? Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's how I do it. But I put my headphones on very loud. And it's normally very loud music too, and like proper heavy metal. And that's what really gets me in the zone. And I'm sitting, and I'm just like da 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 da, and I will not hear Emily or anyone. And suddenly there'll be a hand on my shoulder, but I'll do it on trains. Again, it depends on the timeline you have. But I always find trains are very good for that, because it means you're not on your phone and on social media, but you've got that whatever train distance you have to put your head down and work. So that's some of my writing habits. I use that structure. I put some music on, and it can vary for various people. I know one of my friends listens to techno when he writes,
Right.
And he's written like 4 books as well. So it really depends. Some people I know listen to meditation music, and then just do it short, small increments. That's the best way to write.
The Pomodoro sort of methodology of doing it. Okay, well, I'll write again. Must write book.
You heard it here first, listeners.
So, what does success mean to you? It sounds like you've had successes throughout your career: dancing, speaking, coaching. What does success mean to Elliot now?
It's a great question, and I think during the pandemic, it's really got everybody to question what success means. And I don't think I know. Success right now to me means as long as my kids are smiling, then I'm successful. I've got a little girl, she's going to be 4 this month. I've got a little boy who's 9 months. And as long as they're smiling and then they're playful, then I'm successful, and that's a shift from what I used to define as success. And I think that's actually, again, in this challenging time when we have the tough times, is what keeps me kind of at times grounded. Oh, the kids are smiling. It's okay. We can work through this. So that's what success means to me right now.
Awesome. So speaking is now a big part of your life. Speaking at gigs and teaching speaking. How's the pandemic and Zoom and the equivalents? How's that worked for you? Has it improved, or has it made it more difficult? I'd imagine it will make it more difficult. Must do, surely.
Listen, in my mind, nothing's changed. Just how you deliver has changed. Like the facility you deliver it through has changed. Camera, Zoom, microphone. I think if you've got the ingredients in place, i.e. a good structure, good language, and you're impactful, that comes across on Zoom, right? There's no reason why. A lot of people do presenting sitting down. I do, because obviously I often train a lot. But there's no reason why you can't stand up and still do a talk. There's no reason why there can't be a flip chart behind you. Are you a bit more confined? You are. But if you allow the energy to project through, you'll be just as impactful. So for me, during the first lockdown in the UK, I was really I was doing loads of speaking gigs, and then it quieted, and of course in the summer, and then November's really picked up. You said, you see me on LinkedIn and the places I'm speaking at. In fact, next week I'm speaking in the US from the comfort of my home, right? So it's very interesting because I'm in an international speaking gig in the UK, in the USA. So I do not buy into that the speaking industry has changed. It's moved online. And like anything else, you can either keep with the times and move with the curve, or you can left behind. And all it's done is get us to evolve as speakers and become more diverse, understand platforms better, understand delivery, understand engagement better. How do you engage an audience? Like I always call people out when they don't come on video, because you wouldn't go to an event and put a pillow on your head, right? And that's what you're doing. You're showing up at an event and you're going room, or you're closing your eyes. Yeah. Don't get it. Right? Don't show up to my events and not show your face, right? So things like that. And I think, with the second lockdown looming this week and things, probably carrying on, you've got to move with the time. But speaking is alive. Talks are alive. There's plenty of them. And I think you really need to just get with it and just get out there, because in fact, you're probably speaking more than you realize. If you speak to clients, you're presenting, right? If you're doing webinars or team talks or lunch hours, you're speaking, right? If you're pitching to someone, you're speaking. So you're probably speaking more than you ever spoke before, but you're not thinking about it in that frame.
Yeah. So I there was last week and a half, there was what's called Podcast Movement, which is a US.
Wow, there's a whole movement.
Yes, there's a movement. So they called it Podcast Movement Virtual, because they usually have it in Dallas, but they had it all virtual. So I attended, and it was really interesting. The charismatic, the interesting, as you say, impactful presenters. So there was Pat Flynn, who does Smart Passive Income podcast, which is quite big in the US and in the world. He's a really good presenter. He's very clever. He changed the angle on the mic, not microphones, on the cameras that he had. He had 2 or 3 cameras that he spoke to, and you could just see the difference between the people who had embraced the change to virtual versus the people that were still a little bit fearful of it, and just literally it felt a little bit wooden because they weren't relaxed as well. So
yeah,
I think you're right. I think virtual's where we're going to be for a while anyway. And I think you're equally right. If the people are good speakers, they'll adapt.
Yeah, exactly. And there's so many platforms now to deliver virtual talk, events and stuff, and they're very good. And all you need, you just need to think about like anything else. You might need a 2-camera setup, a 2-screen setup. We did a virtual event in May, with a whole camera, and we hired a venue, and I'd see everybody on the screens, and it was a brilliant day. I mean, even if I say so myself, right? But, it was a multi-speaker event. It's all about getting booked. And we had, almost 40 people on there, and it was really interactive. You adapt, you have to, right?
So tell me a little bit about your Prince's Trust work. I saw that you're involved with them. Do you still work with them?
Absolutely. I've been with them for absolutely years. Absolutely. For me, if ever I'm having a down day and I do a session with the guys in Prince's Trust, they always lift me. Like, they just give me that, oh, yes, that's why I do this. So there I teach, elevator pitch, I teach conversational selling, I teach closing the sale, and I teach public speaking as well. And I do that once a month. Have done it for the best part of, I think, 7 years now. I do a 2 to 3 hour session where I teach them a structure, and then they go away and do it. And it's been fabulous. Actually, I've connected with some of them outside. I've supported one of them recently to get onto MasterChef. She's going to be featured next week. We really worked on our interview technique. She attended one of the trainings. She's just brilliant. And, when I get to support people into their greatness, it just gives me great pleasure. And, often it's pro bono, I don't get paid. I mean, the most I can claim is travel expenses, which I've never done because they're a charity. I just want to get invited to that big ball. That's the one thing I keep telling Joan, my contact there. I'm like, I just want to get invited to the ball with will.i.am and Alicia Dixon. Like, come on, sort it out for me. She's like, Elliot, so does everybody else. I'm like, yes, but I'm not everybody else, am I? So that's when I'll know I'm really made it. Or I'm knighted, one of the two, for the services to the Queen.
I'm not all. We go, baby.
I think of both. I think if I get one, I'll get the other. But I think if I get knighted, I'll get invited. That's a good slogan, isn't it? Get knighted, get invited. So yeah, I just love it. They're great. I mean, they're so appreciative. They're so wanting to learn, and often they connect and just want to follow what you do. And they're really hungry for it. And obviously these are people that life hasn't smiled on them, and, they're really grateful for the opportunity. And, I hope I'm engaging and interesting as well when I present, so that I feel like they also get a different time. I'm quite politically incorrect, which now is very dangerous, because not in a dangerous way, but Joan loves it because I'm quirky, I'm funny, I'm politically incorrect. But now everything's recorded. I have to be really careful what I say, but I don't say anything that's too edgy. Just like the odd out joke that's a bit naughty.
Yeah, fair enough.
But not sexual. Just a naughty joke. Just for record here. I'm going to get myself in trouble, aren't I?
And stop now, Elliot.
Okay, I'm going to stop.
don't dig that hole anymore.
Recording over. Boop.
Right, we're coming to the end of the podcast. I just want to say thank you so much for going so deep on mental health struggles and things that have affected you, and bouncing back from the dance career injury as well. I know some of it might not always be easy to recollect, so I just wanted a big call out to say thank you for going so deep. I think a lot of my people that listen have had mental health situations, so thank you about that.
You can add that into your book.
I could do
your experience, not mine.
Right, so I've got 6 quickfire questions.
Do this.
They don't need a quickfire answer, but it's up to you.
Okay.
First one, best decision that you made?
To become a dancer. I'll go with what the first answer that comes to mind.
Okay,
to follow dance.
What's the best piece of advice you've been given?
Hell is dying and seeing the person you could have become.
Oh, nice. That's very good. That's very good.
Heaven is meeting the person you were.
Oh, very nice. Third one, who helped you most in your career?
Wow, big question. At what stage?
Give a shout out to a couple of people.
Okay. So I'm going to give a massive shout out to Heather Walker, who was kind of a mentor stroke support to me in my dancing days. And even when I left the dance world, she was still in touch. She was amazing. She still is. I'm gonna say my mum. Gonna give her credit where credit's due. She's tough. She's stern. She doesn't take any crap. She doesn't suffer fools lightly, but she's always wanted the best for me. So let's give it to my mum.
Okay, awesome. Any regrets?
Yes, there are. Can I think of them right now?
Share one with me.
I think a key regret is not being more financially savvy when I danced. I think I would have been a lot wealthier now. I think the greatest regrets I always have is I should listen to my gut and I didn't. That's a regret I have. But overall, I think everything I've done, I've made the decision to do it. So I regret very little. But I think definitely not being savvier with my money when I was younger is a big regret.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. What are you most proud of?
Well, my most proud, my beautiful children. I just cannot believe they're mine. I might do a DNA test. Like they are just.
I was going to say they might not be. No,
exactly. No, I'm kidding. I just cannot. Like I look at my little girl and look at my little boy. I'm like, wow. Like thank God my wife is so beautiful because there's no way they look anything like me. But I'm very proud of them. And another man, I am proud of what I achieve in life. I'm proud of the person I am. Not arrogant. I'm very proud in that respect. And I'm proud of what I stand for.
Excellent. What does legacy mean to you?
Legacy means that when I'm gone, I've handed something to the world that will make a difference. And I hope it's my kids, and I've handed them enough to be secure in life. Anything beyond that is a bonus.
Excellent. Well, where can people find you if they're looking for Speaker Express or for your own brand? Where can people find you?
Well, we're on at Speaker Express on Instagram and Twitter. I am Elliot Kay on Twitter as well, if you want to go that route. Facebook. Find me on Facebook, LinkedIn, Elliot Kay. So any of those, if you really want to reach out, feel free to drop us an email. That's hello@speakerexpress.co.uk. By all means, if you want to pick my brains, run something by me, just send me an email. I do respond. Sometimes you might get the team respond first, but I always respond as well. So any of those would be great. I didn't know if you know this, Mark, but I also have a podcast called Voice for Good.
No, I did not. Wow. Tell me about that.
So that's available on Libsyn, and I think can't remember the other one. I think it's
Libsyn will send it to most of our sort of Apple and Spotify. And
there you go. There you go. It's called Voice for Good, and I've just finished season 1. I'm recording season 2. So season 1's about the talk that made you. So what was the talk that elevated you? And then season 2 is all about confidence. So, you let me know if you want to be on season 2. And then season 3, which I haven't started recording yet, is how I came back. So maybe you can come back for season 3 and talk about how you came back. I think that's more in line with what we just talked about. So look for Voice for Good as well if you want to hear about pioneers, entrepreneurs, innovators, all talking about how they use their voice for good.
Sounds fantastic. I didn't know that, so I will check that out.
Cool.
Yeah, by all means, invite me along. I would love to be a guest on your podcast. So thank you, Elliot. Thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure.
It's been absolutely amazing this evening. I really appreciate it. Thanks a lot. Speak to you soon.
Cheers.
Bye.